Welcome everyone. I'm Jeffrey Goodman, Director of Marketing and Development for the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana, and we're here today for Shreveport-Bossier, my city, my community, my home. And our guest is someone I've known for quite a while. It's Tommy Williams. So Tommy, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Appreciate you asking me.
Absolutely. So let's get into the world of Tommy. We'll get to more of your accomplishments and background in future questions, but let's start here today. You were born and raised in Shreveport.
I was.
And have seen Shreveport go through many changes and many ups and downs.
I have.
So my question is, how is Shreveport-Bossier doing in 2023 from Tommy's perspective?
Well, I have a renewed hope right now. I'm excited to see Tom Arsenault be elected mayor. I listened to Tom speak to Downtown Rotary recently, and I think that Tom is the right person at the right time with the right vision. I was most excited to hear him give credit to everyone around him and the team around him, both existing employees that are there now, and maybe more important than that, he looked in the audience and saw a lot of 45 and younger Rotarians, and said that his intention was to, and I'm not speaking for him, but his intention was to build a foundation over the next 4 years that could be turned over to this bright younger generation. And I thought that was well said and a breath of fresh air for this city. And so I'm pretty enthused about that.
Great. And you're an active community leader and have served on numerous boards, including, there's no way I could cover it all, but including, to name but a few, President of the Financial Planning Association, Ark-La-Tex Chapter. If I get any of this wrong, just hop in. Chairman of the Allocations Committee for United Way of North Louisiana, co-chairman of the fundraising campaign for Community Renewal International, a board member of Live Oak Retirement Community, a board member and chairman of the membership committee for the Committee of 100, and for 9 years you chaired the Junior Achievement of North Louisiana Business Hall of Fame. My question is, where does this intense interest and commitment to making our community better come from?
Well, my father was a postal worker, which is fundamentally a blue-collar position, and my mother was a seamstress and a housemaker, and neither went to college, but yet my father had 50 years of perfect attendance in the Kiwanis Club. Mother and daddy were in the Methodist Church, married at Noel Methodist in 1939. They ran the Boy Scout troops, the Girl Scout troops, coached the hardball teams, taught Sunday school, and so though we grew up in what would fundamentally be I think a lower middle class blue collar family, which everybody around me was at the time, they were involved in the community in really impactful ways. I didn't realize it at the time. I simply thought everybody else was having more fun than I was. But I think watching my mother and daddy and what they did led me into a belief that you need to be involved, and it certainly has been rewarding for me. And I'll have to say, like I guess the old saying is, the more you give, the more you get back. And this community has certainly been good to me.
And where do you think they learned that from? I mean, your parents, where do you think they got that sense of service from?
Well, they certainly didn't get it from their parents because they both came from very difficult circumstances, but they grew up in the Depression, and it was like, son, remember, you got a roof over your head and you got a place to be, and you hadn't missed any meals, and you won't miss any as long as Daddy delivers the mail, and so I think they just grew up in a difficult time, and America was in Daddy went off to the war, came back, and it was the post-war industrial era, and they were part of that building. And I think that, I don't think they were that unusual. They call it the greatest generation, and that's not a misnomer. They were just hardworking people, and but they were for the education level and the type of occupations. In retrospect, they were extraordinarily involved, and I think it just came from living in hard times and wanting to contribute as they began to eat 3 meals a day and have a roof over their head.
You talked about this a little bit in reference to Mayor Arsenault. My question is, from your perspective, how do we get more people from my generation, or even, and I'm 49, just to place me, or even the generations coming behind me, to take an active role like you have in pushing our community to reach its fullest potential?
Well, it's no secret that civic organizations are not as vibrant and active as they were, in the heart of my career, and there doesn't seem to be as much involvement from your generation, as you put it. And I think that a lot of that has to do with technology and the communication and a general, deterioration of communities, not just Shreveport, but nationally. And how do you get people involved? Well, I think that it was just the thing to do back in our generation, and now. We've culturally changed, and there are efforts right now that in this community and around the country to try to bring people back to the center and try to gain more community. And, to put it very simply, try to develop a community of caring. If we all care for one another, then trying to solve some of these issues becomes easier. You tend, if you're friends with people, you tend to care for them, and you tend to be more involved in their lives. And so I think that we've come to a period where relationships have deteriorated. Like I'm rushing to get here, and I call you from my car because I have your a Los Angeles number that you call me on my cell phone, and I call you and say, "I'm coming, Jeffrey," and I guess 30 years ago I would have maybe I wouldn't have been running late, but perhaps I would have had to stop at a payphone or just showed up late, or I don't know. But anyway, we're in a different era now, and I think it has caused a deterioration of relationships and of the closeness of relationships that existed years ago. And I believe that I don't think it's that your generation, as you call it, I don't think it's because of laziness or an I don't care attitude. I think it's just a sign of the times in which you're growing up, as opposed to the sign of the times when I grew up. So that's not a very precise answer to the question of how do you get people involved. I think when we experience enough pain as individuals, as humans, we tend to change. Until we experience enough pain, whether it's some personal issue or some societal issue, we don't tend to change. And I don't think we've hit that pain point yet. And when we do, I think people will band together and say, hey, how do we solve this? And I actually think the baby boomers, whereas those of us born between 1946 and 1964, we created more wealth than any generation in history, but we also made a pretty big mess of things in a whole lot of ways. Created some great music, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones. I mean, you can't top that. But we've made a mess of things. But as you well know from your efforts and being in the community, there are a lot of really smart people doing some very diligent work to try to right this ship. And I think that your generation will have some role models and some paths to follow to get involved. But it may not look like Rotary 50 years ago, or the Committee of 100, or some of the institutions and organizations in which I've been involved.
It's interesting to hear you. I mean, you did present a solution. It's interesting to hear you talk about pain points, or you have to get to a certain event, or something has to occur. I mean, I think about the unity you see around, whether it's a hurricane, Katrina or Rita, or 9/11. I mean,
Sure.
You see these events occur, and people really, it activates and galvanizes people.
Yeah, for about 3 weeks, we're all brothers and sisters, and then we, regretfully fall back into our patterns. But you could tell the spark is in us to want to be together, and I think that fundamentally there is a good spark in all of us, every one of us, and there's a lot of distractions out there, and we can easily lose our focus, and then it's suddenly, like 9/11 is a great example, when you see 100 senators and 435, however many congressmen there are, all get out together and shoulder to shoulder show the world that we stand as one, and so it's a shame that it takes things like that to bring us together, but we're all human, and that's part of the process.
So let's get into a little bit more of your specific profession and area of expertise. Again, if I get any of this wrong, please correct it. You are a wealth advisor and founder of Williams Financial Advisors. Every Sunday since 2009, you have authored a column on the front page of the business section of the Shreveport Times entitled Financial Fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
You are a great financial mind in this community and a wealth of knowledge. Would you mind sharing just a few of your financial fundamentals or financial words of wisdom?
Well, first of all, I have one client, and you're looking at him right now. I manage my own investments. I was fortunate over a period of about 6 years to sell my firm, or the majority of it, to a group in Birmingham that have become very good partners. And then a couple of years ago, some of the guys that were in my firm, junior partners, I guess, bought the remaining interest in it. And so I don't have an office at Belmead as I once did. I have an office at home, and I'm still very actively involved. I'm still licensed with the firm. I still am supportive, and I have old client relationships, and those old relationships are more than just business. And so I get calls now and then, but I don't have any day-to-day responsibilities, which is really pretty fortunate, and it has worked out much better than I deserved, probably. As far as investment advice, what I do for myself and what I did for my clients, I probably shouldn't say this, but it's very, very different. I mostly invest in individual stocks, that high dividend paying stocks. I'm always, if you read any of my stuff, I'm forever looking for the market to go down so I can buy things cheaply, and I've had some success at that, because during COVID the market dropped, and I happened to just be lucky and have some cash, And I got a little bit of cash right now, and I've got a watch list of stocks that I'm looking for. But my practice was managing clients' serious nest egg money, and and of course mine is my serious nest egg money. But whenever you're managing someone's life savings, you tend to be extremely conservative, and I'm a little more aggressive personally. And but I do have some guaranteed stuff and some very conservative stuff that I can fall back on. I have Social Security, and I hope you'll keep contributing to, and so that it will continue. And I just went on Medicare January the 1st, and so I have some things that I rely on. But
and you're still writing your column, right?
Yep, wrote. It'll be in the paper this Sunday, and anyway.
So for people who are really young, like Ellen, who are just starting kind of on their financial journey, what are just 2 or 3 just nuggets that I just want to start kind of stabilizing my financial situation. Me too, at my age. What are just some high level pieces of advice you could offer? Well,
the main thing, and this is high level. I think of the response to what you're looking for. Stay out of credit card debt. I've run across that a lot, where people are paying 24% interest or something, and then they end up a year or two later they owe more than they started out borrowing. And just consistently investing over time. Even Warren Buffett, who's probably the most famous investor in America, the most well-known anyway, even his, at 90-something, he still says, time in the market is a whole lot more important than timing the market. And so, small and consistent investing over time, and, with 401ks and things like that, where you can do it on a pre-tax basis. And then companies match, for those people who work for companies that have a 401k, doing those kind of small, consistent, and then your car breaks down and whatever, you see a new car, or you want to go to Hawaii, or whatever people do, want to buy a Harley, go to the Led Zeppelin concert, whatever distraction there is out there, you say, well, we're not touching that, and that is a sacred box that we don't get into, and you just keep compounding that in there, and doing monthly investments, especially if there's a match. If it's 25%, that's a guaranteed 25% rate of return, tax-free or tax-deferred, tax-free when you make it. And if a person does that for a long period of time, they're going to be very well set, 20, 30, 40 years down the road. And most of the people that were clients of mine, and most of the people that I know that are financially sound, that's what they did. I know of some stories of people who, created something, invented something, inherited something, or, Haynesville Shell, or any number of ways that people either stumbled into or were gifted large sums of money. But by far, most people who are financially stable did it little bits at a time, consistently, and kept their focus, were frugal and disciplined. And they woke up one day and, oh my gosh, I can't believe. And, they even wrote a book, The Millionaire Next Door. I think Thomas Stanley wrote that book several years ago. And, oh my gosh, I got all this money. And then they start, typically because they're frugal, they won't spend it, and they start giving it away. But what a wonderful American story.
Absolutely. That's great advice. That's exactly what I wanted. Thank you. So my next 2 questions, my final 2 questions, are more general, just globally, you looking around this community. So The first question is simply, what's holding us back, in your opinion, from becoming one of the next great small cities in America?
Well, Shreveport is very interesting. As you suggested, I did grow up here. I went off to Louisiana Tech. I moved to Houston with Texas Eastern Pipeline. I worked overseas with a geophysical company, Payray Geophysical. Came back with Crystal Oil Company. In 1986, the oil industry collapsed, and I was making $205 a week on unemployment, and was inspired and struck off. I didn't see any history of any future in the oil business, which was really a lack of foresight on my part. But nonetheless, I went into the investment business, as you suggested, and so I've seen. I'm from here, like you. I know you went to Los Angeles once, and then came back, and I came back and found some measure of success in this community. So I've seen it from really kind of two different sides. Once I lived in Queensboro, lived in Blanchard, and before that out in the woods. And then we hit the big time and moved into a rent house in Queensboro, and now I live in Southern Trace. So, I've observed Shreveport has there's a term called Shreveport-itis that you've heard. It's a bit of an inferiority complex, and it only is inflicted upon people like myself that have been here all the time. I have friends that move here from Atlanta, from Dallas, from Tulsa, from other places, some from Europe even, and they love Shreveport. And they talk about the hospitality and the food, and you can get anywhere in 20 minutes. And what a wonderful place this is. And then the rest of us sit around and complain and whine and carry on. But it's just sort of ingrained in our culture. To do that. But, underneath that veneer of whining and complaining, Shreveport is an incredibly philanthropic, incredibly generous community. As you suggested in the opening, I've been involved in a lot of fundraising activities. It is absolutely amazing for a community this size to see the amount of generosity from churches, civic groups, individuals, when there's an issue and, that's legitimate and you can make a case for it, it's amazing who steps forward and contributes both their time and their money. So Shreveport has, you listen to the economic development guys, and you got, we're strategically located, between Dallas and Atlanta and the river and where we're just, there's just so many things. We've got the healthcare industry, we've got Barksdale and so you can get really excited about the assets that we have. And, it's a sportsman's paradise and a lot of good pro athletes from here and just a lot of people from Shreveport that are really doing big things around the world, and it's really pretty cool. On the other hand, in my view, and I think most people who have been involved in the community would agree with this, is our biggest problem is one of collaboration. And I remember a study done many years ago, I believe sanctioned by the Committee 100, where a Boston-based consultant did a very thorough study, made a report, and he'd been all over the country looking at cities and trying to tell us, what we might do to make a plan for the city. And his comment was, Shreveport has the most toxic civic environment that he had observed of any of the cities he had studied. And he goes on to say, and I'm not quoting him well, I'm paraphrasing because it's been a while. But he said, hey, everybody hates everybody in this town. And, and you do run into that where, well, I'd like to get on board with that, but you've got Joe Bob over here, he's involved, and I really I don't like him too much, and we got sideways 20 years ago over what color car he drives or something. So there is it's kind of like we don't necessarily have a crime problem. We have crime. The solution to the crime is we have a collaboration problem, trying to get these silos working together. And of course, this is not something that, I had a piece of enlightenment tonight and woke up and went, aha, let me come tell Jeffrey, this is pretty well known. Shreveport's pretty siloed up, and trying to bring these different entities together to work collaboratively on a solution is challenging. And a leader that can do that can turn this place into just, or can, I say turn it, that's probably, as Tom Arsenault did say in his speech, this is not a speedboat, it's a battleship, it turns slowly, but can make a difference and take advantage of the assets that this city has in place. But until there is that air of collaboration and look, we're going to put some of these old disputes aside and we're going to pull, we're going to all start rowing this boat together. Until that happens, that I think that we will continue to muddle along, and of course I could tell you a number of things that are incredibly. You'd probably tell me more about the incredibly positive things that are going on in this town. But we could be so much more, and we could do so much more if we all would put aside whatever those differences are and collaborate.
What do you think? That's all fascinating. And what do you think? I mean, what do you personally, or just what do you attribute the creation of those silos to, or why do you think they exist, or what are those differences, or just what is your wisdom around that? Like, why do they exist, and how do we possibly break them open and bring them more together?
Well, I think one is I don't believe Shreveport's the only place like that. I think that we're small enough where you probably had this experience where you meet somebody at a function and you've never seen them before, and they've been here all their lives, and you have a nice conversation, realize you know some common people, and then the next day you're at the car wash on Burt Coons and they're sitting there, and then they're at the line and waiting at Brookshire's and running them at Starbucks, and we're just big enough where you don't know anybody, or you could not don't have any overlap with people, and yet small enough where you can't go anywhere, or you sure can't do anything without people knowing about it. If we're trying to do some nefarious activity. So, not all cities are that size.
Sure.
That have. I think that's part of it, but some of it might go back to, they always say leadership. It's about leadership. Well, who is the leader? Who is the leadership at Shreveport? Is it the Committee 100? Is it the mayor? Is it the black ministers? Is it, I don't know who the leadership in Shreveport is, and I don't think that's real clear. And it may go back to that plane crash in Wallace Lake back in the 50s, where some of the real leaders in this town, the
Atkins, Hargrove, etc.
Yeah, one night a whole plane load of them are killed in a plane crash, and there are some that theorize that you move forward from there, and that's we were the pipeline capital of the world once, and then that had to have had an adverse impact, but in cities like Austin, Texas, where I heard a speaker speak and talk about how they built. Of course, Austin had University of Texas and Texas state government. I mean, they had a few things going for them that Shreveport doesn't have, but he was talking about how they turn things around, and the first thing you do is you get the wealthy families on board, and he did that. And the wealthy families in the Shreveport, in this area, not that I'm certainly not a part of that circle, but I know that some of them don't necessarily collaborate. And so if there were a way to bring those together. But I also know some of those wealthy families that have, anonymously given incredible amounts of money and supported things. And so I don't want to be critical of any of those families because of the things that they've done. But, if you can't get your wealthy families in a community pulling in the same direction, this guy from Austin that spoke to the Committee 100 one day and talked about the significance of that made me think that that's one of the challenging things. And one thing that is true is that generation, regretfully, most of the guys, as I sit here and think, and I won't name any, but as I sit here and think of those people, most of them are now gone. And it's a new generation. And, it's like the daddies are now my peers. And so as I said a little while ago, the great hope is that your generation will do a better job. And I see some of these descendants, I might say, from some of these wealthy families around town. Seems to me that they're getting involved in doing positive things. So, maybe there's some hope there that, some of the bad blood from the past, the Hatfields and the McCoys or whoever they were, maybe some of those things can be put to rest and everybody start, rowing the boat in the same direction.
And just to follow along with that, my final question is just if you could, talk about some of the things that make you optimistic as you look around about our community's future.
Well, there are some things that I'm directly involved in. One is, and you're familiar with, is community renewal, and I can't quote the Bible verse correctly, but a prophet in his hometown is never given credit, and you have guys like Mac McCarter, who the Catholics, he gets the Opus Award. There's some whisper campaign right now about a Nobel Peace Prize, and if they've just put a book out, Mac, actually written with Mac's thoughts, and Tim Mulden, who's a professor at Boston College and is used to be very active in Catholic charities and a brilliant guy up in Boston. They've written a book about building better communities. That if everybody in Shreveport read this, it's a little small book too. It's not like War and Peace.
I'm gonna have to read it. I hadn't read it.
I'm telling you, I've been on their advisory board for many years, and they wouldn't mind me saying they are one of the most frustrating organizations I've ever been engaged with. On the other hand, they also offer the most hope, and basically the fundamental thing there is the need for us to all care about one another, and they have all their We Care signs and their friendship houses and their haven houses, and so you see a little pocket over here, and when I look at your chart on the wall over here, it's intriguing to me because I see all these different groups, everybody doing their thing, and all of them most of them doing good things. And I'm also on the Community Relations Committee at First Methodist Church, and the effort that First Methodist does in this community is just absolutely amazing, and the nonprofits that we support, and just the day-to-day, being a downtown church, the day-to-day activities of being supportive. There are things that's going on right here in Shreveport, and Community Renewal has been here for 27, 28 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, everybody in the country, people from all over the world. That they Mac McCarter has guys from Ray Dalio with Bridgewater up in Connecticut, billionaire that's well known, paying attention, and I mean in Washington D.C. If you saw the advisory board, the National Advisory Board, we have Zoom meetings, and I'm honored to sit on that. And I look around on the screen. Oh my gosh, what am I doing sitting here? We've got the former Secretary of the Navy, and guys, the president of Kansas City Southern, and so there are people all around that are looking at what's going on in Shreveport, going, "Oh, you guys have the answer. Y'all have a model there that works for rebuilding community." And but you go around town here, you go, well, Community Renewal, they got some good ideas, but they don't manage this very well. They don't do this very well, and and I supported them for a while, and that kind of thing. Very, very interesting how that works. But the answer to your question is those types of activities have been going on a long time. Takes a while to create problems, and it takes a while to solve them. And there are a lot of entities, organizations. You're familiar with the new one that's sort of a grassroots thing right now, Citizens United.
Right.
That is really doing some smart things, trying to first get a focus on what the issues are and properly define what does success look like. Properly define the problem, and rather than just dive in where people are already doing things, try to make a difference in really the issue there is the crime problem, and try to tackle that. And so people don't have to do that. I mean, these people can be out on their boats in the Virgin Islands, or playing golf or doing whatever, and yet you see everybody gathering, saying, "Hey, we care about one another, and I care about you, and we want this community to be a better place." So, the optimist in me says, I think they will prevail, and I think this city will flourish, and will be the shining city on the hill. But it takes time to do that, but I think with our trajectory right now, certainly in a positive direction.
And Tommy, this has all been wonderful. Is there anything else we didn't touch on, or anything else that you see or are passionate about that you'd like to mention? I really appreciate you being here today.
Well, I'm glad to do it, and I hope this has been helpful. I can't think of anything I would add. We talked about silos, we've talked about collaboration, we've talked about hope, and talked about the fact that we have problems. I can't think of what I could say that would add to that. I'm thankful there's some people a lot smarter than me that are working the problem.
Me too. A lot smarter than me.
I appreciate the opportunity to weigh in on it, and I hope it's been helpful.
Thanks, Tommy. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.